Welcome to the Stoic Bodywork podcast, where we focus on balancing the body, opening the mind, and awakening the spirit. I'm Octavia, your co-host. Just a quick reminder, all the information shared here is for general informational purposes only and isn't intended as professional, medical, or legal advice. All right, let's get started.
Welcome to another episode of the Stoic Bodywork podcast. I am joined by Octavia today. Say hi, Octavia.
Hey everyone, Octavia here. Super excited to be part of today's conversation. Thanks for having me on again.
Well, you are the co-host. So today is about supplements, and today's episode is dedicated to the wonderful people over at purebulk.com. I did a podcast a couple years ago about mental health and self-awareness, and the team over at PureBulk, specifically Glenn, shout out to Glenn, brought me on after doing that podcast and doing some reviews of some products as a practitioner in their program. So not only just an affiliate, but they also gave me the opportunity to sell their products in-house in my practice, which I'm super thankful for. And as an affiliate of theirs, things have been awesome. They're a wonderful company. And I just want to shout out to them because this whole episode is going to be about supplements today. I got a lot of questions. I got a lot of vocabulary stuff to go over. But if you are looking for supplements, and specifically anything I mentioned today, on the positive side, head over to purebulk.com, use coupon code taming. Oh, so that's the other one. Use coupon code Stoic Bodywork 15 for 15% off your first order. And then you can use coupon code Stoic Bodywork for 10% off any order after that. There's nobody else in the industry that does that. So that I know of. They're just an awesome company. I've never had a problem with them. Their shipments are always on time. Their customer service is always super friendly, super helpful. They have this cool little check thing where in your package, you get like a little check off sheet of who filled the order, who checked the order. So I can't think of any of the names of their little stamps, but it's always nice to see like who did what. So it's always cool. So shout out to everybody in the team there. So today we're going to talk about supplements, and there's a lot to go over here. So I'm going to start with some of the vocabulary. The first thing I'm going to start with is the difference between a vitamin and a supplement. Vitamins are the things that our bodies need. They're essential to our processes. We usually get them through our diet, but vitamins means that they're a vitamir, and a vitamir is, again, something that is you can't live without it. And so something can be a vitamin and a supplement, but not all supplements are vitamins. So that's the first thing to keep in mind. And then when we talk about supplements, we're talking about a version of something that you can take. And those versions have different types. You can have things known as bioavailability, which is, you might have methylated or chelated, so there's a bunch of different things there. But the thing to keep in mind is vitamins. We know most of those. I'm going to go over those all in a second, but supplements are not vitamins. It's completely different because a supplement can be derived from a root or an herb or, some process like that. Whereas it's a vitamin or the vitamirs, it's the essential. Oh, and there's another thing to add. Essential minerals are different than vitamins. So you have vitamins, essential minerals, and supplements, and they're all a little bit different. So when people are talking to you about like, oh, you're taking a vitamin, you're taking a supplement, you're taking an essential mineral, now they're all a little bit different. They all do different things. And also when we talk about vitamins and supplements, we have to talk about water versus fat soluble. So Octavia, why don't you chime in here and tell people what the difference between water soluble vitamins are and fat soluble vitamins?
Absolutely. So the main difference between water-soluble and fat-soluble vitamins is how they're absorbed and stored in the body. Water-soluble vitamins like vitamin C and the B vitamins dissolve in water and aren't stored in large amounts. That means your body uses what it needs and then gets rid of the excess through urine. On the other hand, fat-soluble vitamins like vitamins A, D, E, and K dissolve in fat and are stored in the body's fatty tissues and liver. This means they can be kept in the body for longer periods of time. So it's important to get a consistent supply of water-soluble vitamins, while fat-soluble ones can build up over time.
Perfect. Now, let's talk about the vitamins just to start.
Sure thing.
Yeah, go ahead. Give us the list of vitamins, and then I'll give my anecdotal understanding of how they all work in the body.
All right, so we've got quite a few vitamins, but the main ones are vitamins A, C, D, E, and K. And then we have the B vitamins, which are actually a group of vitamins like B1, B2, B3, and so on. Each of these vitamins has its own special role in the body, and I'm excited to hear your take on how they all work.
So here we go. You are looking at a medieval castle. It has a moat, it has a wall, it has a, city center inside, and there's a big castle. Vitamin E are the guards keeping the drawbridge up or down at the moat. They control the gate. They let things in and out of cells. Vitamin C is the wall itself. The vitamin C protects cellular walls, and it's actually what our cellular walls need the most to make sure we have a nice thick cellular wall. We'll get into vitamin C a little bit later about that. But then we move into the courtyard of the castle, and we look around, and we see all of the people doing things. That's the vitamin Bs. Vitamin Bs are the specialists. They are the blacksmith and the, horse caretakers and the person running the inn, and they do all sorts of specialty jobs. From there, we move on to the castle itself, and we head up to the castle chambers, and we find vitamin D, which is the queen of the castle. She runs the whole show. She's in charge. And on her right-hand side is vitamin K. That is the, we'll call it the bishop in the sense that, whatever she needs done, she's like, hey, vitamin K, you're my helper. Let's do some things. That is essentially how the vitamins interact. Anything to add there, Octavia?
I absolutely love that analogy. It's such a fun way to think about it. I think the only thing I'd add is that all these vitamins really do work together to keep the whole castle running smoothly. So it's a great team effort.
Now, we typically get most of our vitamins and minerals and supplement, pieces, the things that we need for our body to run through our diet. Before I go into the in-depths of, what vitamins do, more of this or that, or what should I be taking, or what kind of supplements are there out there, I want to start with, yes, you do get most everything you need through your diet. The problem with that is if you have a very specific, regimented, or restrictive diet, and also if you live in modern society. Let's talk about that for a second. Octavia, can you please give us some statistics of the food nutrient densities comparatively from the 1940s to now? I believe the most egregious of them is the iron content in grains is down about 50%. Am I correct on that?
You're absolutely right. Over the past several decades, the nutrient density of many of our foods has significantly declined. For example, the iron content in grains has dropped by nearly 50% since the 1940s. We've also seen decreases in other essential nutrients like calcium, magnesium, and vitamins in fruits and vegetables. So even with a well-rounded diet, sometimes it's still a good idea to consider supplements to make up for those gaps.
Now, let's talk about some of those diets that may definitely need some help. And caveat here, I'm not a medical professional. We talk about it all the time. But also, I'm not against whatever diet you want to hold. As long as you're being healthy and treating your body correctly, look, your moral and ethical decisions as far as diets goes, or what you're doing as far as what you need to do for your health, talking to your medical professionals, I'm not here to tell you what to do there. What I can tell you is in certain diets, specifically those that are vegan based or do not intake any proteins as far as the meat sources, are going to be lacking in some other things because the vegetable or the plant-based versions are not necessarily absorbed well. So when we talk about different diet restrictions, we're also talking about different sources of the minerals and vitamins that we're getting in our diet. We absorb pretty well from proteins based on meats. I'm not saying you need to eat meat. I'm just saying when it comes to red meat and poultry, we tend to absorb a lot of things from that comparatively to some other sources. So if you are someone who has a restricted or a morally ethically based diet, you might want to look at what are you actually getting in your diet? Because if you're getting it from a specific source, specifically a plant-based or vegetable-based source, you might not be getting great absorption. The number one thing there is vitamin D. Cholecalciferol is different than ergocalciferol. calciferol is essentially the, vitamin D thing. Ergo and col is ergocalciferol vitamin D2, or is that one D1? I'll have to check with Octavia in a second, is from plant-based, and we have a terrible conversion function of that. Absolutely abysmal when it comes to that. Octavia, can you check me on that? Ergocalciferol versus cholecalciferol.
Yes, absolutely. So ergocalciferol is actually vitamin D2 and cholecalciferol is vitamin D3. And you're right, our bodies do a much better job of absorbing and utilizing vitamin D3, which is what we usually get from animal sources or from sunlight. Vitamin D2, on the other hand, comes from plant-based sources, and we do have a tougher time converting it efficiently. So that can definitely be something to keep in mind.
Can you give us any other examples of, again, we are totally okay with anybody and their diet restrictions, but other plant-based sources or other sources that may have been a restriction for someone who they might need to check, like, are they really getting absorption?
Absolutely. One common example is vitamin B12, which is primarily found in animal products. So people on a vegan diet might need to supplement that since it's not readily available in plant-based foods. Another one is omega-3 fatty acids, which we often get from fish, but there are plant-based sources like flax seeds and chia seeds, though the conversion to the active forms of omega-3s can be less efficient. Iron is another one because while it's present in plant foods, it's a non-heme form, which isn't as easily absorbed as the heme iron from animal sources. So it's always good to be aware of those differences and just make sure you're getting what you need.
So that brings us to our first vocabulary piece, which is the word bioavailable. When you hear the word bioavailable, think of something that your body can readily use. It doesn't have to do any processes to make it useful. It's already available. Octavia mentioned vitamin B12, cholecobalamin. Cobalamin needs to be methylated. That's a process in the body that uses a methyl group to make it bioavailable. So if you just take vitamin B12, say in a B complex, and it's not methylated, and you're a specific individual out there, and I can't name the current condition right away because I'll have to have Octavia check on it, but there's a condition where we don't do those chelations, methylizations, and phosphorylations, so we don't convert something into a usable form. One of those is vitamin B12. And so you need to be taking a bioavailable vitamin B12 known as methylcobalamin or methylated B12. Octavia, can you check me on that condition and how that works?
Absolutely. So the condition you're referring to is often linked to a genetic mutation in the NTHFR gene, which can make it harder for the body to methylate certain vitamins like B12 and folate. Because of that, some people do need to take the methylated forms like methylcobalamin for B12 so that their body can use it right away without having to go through that extra conversion process. So yeah, bioavailability is definitely key here.
Can you name some other common things that should be taken bioavailable, either in a methylation, phosphorylation, those types?
Sure. Another common example is folate, which is vitamin B9. It's often recommended to take it in the form of methylfolate, especially for those with that MTHFR mutation. Omega-3 fatty acids are another great example. When it comes to supplements, the triglyceride form is often more bioavailable than the ethyl ester form. Also with minerals like magnesium, certain forms like magnesium glycinate or magnesium citrate are more easily absorbed compared to something like magnesium oxide. So it can definitely make a difference to check the form of your supplements to make sure you're getting the most benefit.
So that brings us into two specific vocabulary things. And we're going to start with absorption, and then we're going to talk about what a stack is. So when we talk about absorption, that's when we're talking about the bioavailable. You get a better absorption factor. That is true for anything we're eating. And this is why I harp on gut biome so much with people's health, is because if the gut biome's not working, we're not really absorbing the nutrients we need. So when we talk about absorption rates, that is the probably most important thing we talk about when it comes to another vocabulary word we'll get into, which is dosing. How much do I need to be taking to get the absorption of the thing I need? Before I go any farther with this, I will always recommend that you talk to your medical professionals and get regular blood panels done so you know where your levels are. I will also add the caveat that most places that do blood work give you a range, and there's this little thing that says you're in the green, you're in the yellow, you're in the red, blah, blah, blah. That is most generally based on research that I would disagree with, because it's using general averages across massive populations that have very little in common, actually, specifically when we're talking about gut biome or even bioavailable sources and how things do and diets, all that. So work with your doctors on that, but also keep in mind that like that little green zone isn't telling you the whole story. It is a good piece of information to have, but there can be more information to be gathered there as well. Not getting too far into that, moving back to the absorption rates. When we talk about absorption rate, we're talking about how we get something into the system. And honestly, this is the argument why people say multivitamins don't work, or this thing doesn't work, this supplement doesn't work, or taking that is nonsense because it's the absorption rate. Absorption rate can be gotten around by making sure you have a proper stack. Before I go farther on that, is there anything you would like to add on absorption rates, Octavia?
I think you covered it really well. I would just emphasize that absorption really does depend on a lot of factors like your gut health, what other foods you're eating at the same time, and even your individual metabolism. So it's definitely important to be mindful of that when you're choosing supplements and also when you're considering your diet as a whole.
This gets into stacks. And when you hear the word stack, it just means the supplements someone's taking. My supplement stack specifically is vast. I take a lot of supplements. I have what's called a big stack. I take, I don't know, probably 12, 15 things every morning, plus some other times during out the day, and it varies. Someone's stack is specific to themselves. Never, and I mean never, take someone else's stack just because they were like, oh, this works great for me. It's not guaranteed to work for you. This is like the number one thing in all supplementation as far as like people telling other people what to take. Never take someone else's stack because you don't know if it's going to work for you. You have to create your own stack. That's another piece of self-awareness. When we're creating a stack, we should always start with individual things and never blends. I'm not a big fan of blends because we don't know what the absorption rates is. And most blends, look, they have to fit them into capsules. Most people want to take capsules. This is actually why I started using Pure Bulk, even before I was an affiliate of theirs. Pure Bulk is just like the most pure stuff out there. And, I'll get into that more later, but, I wanted to be able to take individual supplements. I didn't want blends because in a blend, you might get 500 milligrams of this, a gram of that, 250 milligrams of this, 100 milligrams of that. Well, if your body has an absorption problem with any one of those things, that blend's not going to work appropriately for you. And also, most of it's nonsense and doesn't need to be taken with whatever you're taking as well. So when we talk about stacks, your stack needs to be specific to you, and you should always start with one thing at a time. Don't just start adding all sorts of crazy things because you don't know what the interaction is going to be. Start with, I know this is going to sound crazy, but one specific targeted thing that you want to accomplish and nothing else. Don't be taking anything else other than your medications and all that stuff, which is another thing. Interactions, always be careful of that. Another vocabulary word we've all heard before, how interactions work. But a stack needs to be specific to yourself, and you should always add one supplement at a time or one vitamin at a time to make sure your absorption rates are good and that it's not affecting anything else going on. Once you have that down, which takes, I would estimate, somewhere around 6 weeks to have any really good measurable data, you can move on from there. Octavia, anything to add there?
I think you explained that perfectly. The only thing I'd emphasize is that patience really is key when building a supplement stack. It does take time to see how your body responds to each individual supplement, and that way you can really fine tune it to fit your own needs. So just be patient and listen to your body, and you'll end up with a stack that works perfectly for you.
So when we're building our stacks, it's often good to know some vocabulary as far as what should you be looking at, right? It's probably the number one question that happens in all of supplementation of what should I be taking? When should I be taking it? How should I be taking it? And that depends on a lot of different factors. The first thing is brand. Honestly, it starts with the brand. And that's why I am an affiliate of Pure Bulks. I trust the brand, and the brand is awesome because honestly, I call it the smell test. You can smell the difference in supplements. Like when you really, because we're talking about like some of these are like, they're not chemicals, right, necessarily, but they have specific odors, and you can smell one compared to another and be like, that's weak and has no smell. Comparatively to when I smell Pure Bulks, like the number one example I use is their NAC, their N-acetyl-L-cysteine. When you smell Pure Bulk's NAC, it has that sour smell to it. Like, and you can like waft it and you're like, whoa, okay, that's intense. That's because it's super pure and it's high quality. You can go smell another thing in NAC. And honestly, Pure Bulks, you can smell it through the capsule, which is even crazier. But you can go sniff another brand and it's just not the same. So brand matters the most. Most of the brands out there are controlled by the big food groups. And honestly, I'm going to say it. Maybe it's a little bit of a conspiracy. That's why they're all crap. They are just, it's just fillers and nonsense. And the amounts that are actually in the capsules isn't enough to really do anything for anybody. It's non-measurable. And that's why the industry has suffered for so long from people saying like, oh, supplementation doesn't do anything. Multivitamins don't do anything. Yeah. A multivitamin that has crappy absorption because it's just mostly filler and nonsense and doesn't even have enough of each of the ingredients to make a difference. And they tell you to take 2 capsules when you're probably supposed to be taking more like 8, but no one wants to do that. So they don't market it that way. Of course, we're going to end up with supplements that don't work. That's because the big food industries own them. You know who doesn't? Pure Bulk. So Pure Bulk is its own company. It's was started by Tim McNulty. Go and do a bunch of research there. It's just like in the bodybuilding community, it's probably one of the best companies that's ever been. And again, this episode is dedicated to them. So I'm going to be constantly just be like, yep, they're awesome. Go check them out. So that being said, brand is super important. Moving on from brand, we go into some types and ways those pills or powders can be presented to you. The number one I think to talk about here is what's known as liposomal. Octavia, can you explain what liposomal means?
Of course. So liposomal basically refers to a delivery method where the supplement or nutrient is encapsulated in tiny fat-like particles called liposomes. And these liposomes help protect the nutrient as it passes through the digestive system and enhance its absorption into the bloodstream. So when you see a supplement labeled as liposomal, it usually means it's designed to have a higher absorption rate and be more bioavailable to your body.
I will also at this point expect those to be a little bit more expensive, but it's probably understandable because you have to take less of it to get the same amount. Octavia, can you continue and add some other examples of absorption modifiers such as liposomal?
Absolutely. Another common absorption enhancer is something called a chelated mineral, where the mineral is bound to an amino acid, which helps your body absorb it more effectively. You might also see fermented supplements, where nutrients are fermented to make them easier for the body to recognize and utilize. Another one is enteric coating, where supplements are coated in a way that helps them survive the stomach acid and be absorbed in the intestines more effectively. So there are definitely a lot of cool ways to help boost absorption.
But Phil and Octavia, how do I know these are actually going to work for me, even though they have these fancy names? Aha, we have an answer for you. It's known as testing, third-party testing, specifically that happens outside of the company. Pure Bulk is known for this. You can get any COA, a certificate of authenticity, from a third-party lab that they do not necessarily keep on record. I'm going to get into this here more in a second. But Octavia, can you tell us about the third-party testing that goes on giving out COAs?
Absolutely. Third party testing is such an important part of ensuring quality. It basically means that an independent lab, separate from the supplement company, tests the products to confirm their purity, potency, and overall quality. And like you said, companies like Pure Bulk are great about making these certificates of analysis or COAs available to their customers. So you can actually check and see the test results for yourself, which really helps ensure that what you're taking is exactly what you're getting.
Now I'm going to go one level deeper because Pure Bulk actually taught me this because I didn't know this was a thing in the industry until I found out about it. Most companies are shisty in some cases, specifically the ones owned by the big food companies. Here's what they usually do. They call a lab, they send off their batch, they get it batch tested, they get the COA from the lab, they put it online, it's available, and you can download it. But that was for a specific batch at a specific time, and sometimes they never update them. So you have to look at the time and date and the batch number. If it was a couple years ago, or if it was 6 months ago, depending on how big the company is, it could be a completely different batch. You don't know if they changed suppliers. They might have gone to a whole different supplier, kept the old COA, still waiting on the new one, and you'd have no idea. So if you really want to make sure you get the COA, and the COA better come from a third party lab. It's best if the third party lab sends it directly to you. That's why Pure Bulk has, you can ask them for a COA and then they have it sent to you. And it better include batch number, dates that are around the time in which you're buying. And if you want to get super, super specific, you can be like, hey, does this COA cover the batch number I'm buying? Now, I would only be super specific about that if I really had like some serious questions, if I didn't trust the company, but that's it. It gets kind of shisty in that way. They will just keep COAs on. I won't name any names, but I've seen it. They'll just keep a COA on record that you can be like, oh, you're on the website and you're like, oh, COA, cool. It's completely outdated. It has nothing to do with the current. You have no idea. It's just nonsense. They just bought one really good batch, got that tested. It's all pure and amazing. And then they moved on to a cheaper vendor that's providing a crappier product. So be careful with that type of stuff. What else can we move on to here? With the liposomal and all the other different terms that Octavia just gave you, let's also talk about flavonoids and polyphenols. Octavia, can you explain those differentiations? Flavonoids, polyphenols. There's one more I'm forgetting. Feel free to add it in.
Absolutely. So, polyphenols are a large group of naturally occurring compounds found in plants, and they have antioxidant properties, which are really beneficial for our health. Flavonoids are actually a subgroup of polyphenols, and they're responsible for the vibrant colors in many fruits and vegetables. And they also have a lot of health benefits like supporting heart health and reducing inflammation. Another related group you might be thinking of is carotenoids, which are also plant pigments and have antioxidant properties. So all of these compounds play a really important role in keeping us healthy and can often be found in various supplements as well.
So looking at labels, which is my next thing I want to talk about, is very important. Before I talk a little bit more about that, I also want to talk about some things you might find on a label that I'd like Octavia to give us some more information on. Let's talk about filler versus emulsifier versus anti-caking agents. Can you talk about those, please, Octavia?
Absolutely. So fillers are basically inactive substances that are added to supplements to give them bulk or to help with the manufacturing process, but they don't have any nutritional value. Emulsifiers, on the other hand, are used to help mix ingredients that don't naturally blend well, like oil and water, and they can help improve the texture and consistency of a supplement. And then anti-caking agents are added to prevent clumping, so they make sure that powders stay free-flowing and don't stick together. So it's always good to be aware of these when you're looking at a supplement label, just to know what you're actually putting into your body.
So one easy way to go about this is most emulsifiers and anti-caking agents are readily known. You might see sunflower lecithin. I'm probably pronouncing that incorrectly, but that's a common anti-caking agent. So you'll get used to that as you go, like looking for like, oh, I know that one. I don't know this one. Let me look it up. Filler is harder to spot because filler doesn't get listed. Sometimes you'll see it because of new labeling requirements, but often, filler is the hardest thing to spot. That's where you go to the COAs and look through things there. Also on a label, before we get into actual labels themselves, we have to talk about RDVs and RDAs. And I'm going to separate this off after, but it's going to be on there. So when you look at a label, it's all standardized, specifically here in the United States. It has to give you it's going to say, most of them will say supplemental or supplement blend or something like that on the top. And then I should know this more because I actually produce supplements, but there's rules. And then they'll have to list out okay, what is this for? What's in it? How much of each thing is in it? Is there a recommended daily value percentage? And then what's the actual full ingredient list? So there you might see RDV or RDA. RDA is less used in America as far as I remember. Octavia, check me on that one. Is it RDV or RDA? Which would we use RDV, correct?
Yes, you're right. In the United States, we typically see RDV, which stands for recommended daily value, and that gives you a percentage of how much that nutrient contributes to the daily requirements based on a standard diet. RDA, or recommended dietary allowance, is still used in some contexts, but on supplement labels, RDV is the more common term. So it's definitely helpful to understand what those percentages mean when you're reading a label.
And why don't you go ahead and just correct me on what's on the label for a supplement specifically? What's required for them to be able to see?
Of course. So on a supplement label, you'll usually see a supplement facts panel, and that will list the serving size, the number of servings per container, and the amount of each nutrient per serving. It will also show the percentage of the recommended daily value for each nutrient. And of course, you'll also see the list of ingredients, which includes not just the active ingredients, but also any fillers, emulsifiers, or other additives. So it definitely gives you a good overview of what you're getting in that supplement.
Awesome. So now that we know what to look for on our labels and, where to shop and what to look for and how to start a stack and what bioavailability means and how to find out about purity and all that stuff, let's talk about those RDVs and RDAs for a second. Um, I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it because this is just, I've been doing this so long, specifically supplementation. I've been supplementing for years. RDVs are typically BS. They're based on really bad research that's never been really updated because we have more updated research that you can go off of. That research is done, although a massive amount more needs to be done, but they've never really updated the RDVs. The number one most egregious RDV I've ever come across was vitamin C. The recommended daily value for vitamin C, I think they've changed it since, and it really hasn't changed much, but was based on Linus Polling's research on the amount of vitamin C a sailing age male, so think, I don't know, anywhere from 14 to probably 24, on a ship needs to prevent scurvy. Not like be healthy as a person, but just to prevent scurvy. Octavia, double check me on that, please.
Yes, you're absolutely right. The original recommendation for vitamin C was indeed based on preventing scurvy, which is the most basic level of vitamin C you need just to avoid deficiency. So a lot of these recommended daily values were created with just the bare minimum in mind, not necessarily optimal health. And that's why a lot of people in the supplement world do look at more updated research to figure out what might be the best levels for them.
Yeah. So RDVs, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it, BS. Look at better research. Your doctors might know that fact. They might not know that fact. Look, this one's up to you. Do your own research on that one. But I don't, anytime I see an RDV, I just throw that out. I just throw it out the window like it's nonsense. That's the reason I tell people you have to look at those like bracketed areas that they give you for your blood panels, because those blood panels technically are using RDV values unless they're using a new research set, which has to do with nanograms per milliliter in the bloodstream. But even those can get a little skewed depending on how old the research set is for that. So yeah, the most egregious one I ever came across doing research back in the day was vitamin C. It was just nonsense, absolute nonsense. I am going to correct one thing about vitamin C while I'm already on the topic and tangent. Vitamin C does not, and I repeat, does not help you get over a cold. You're way too late to the party on that one. You should be, in my personal opinion, do your own research, talk to your medical professionals. I'm not a medical professional. You should be supplementing vitamin C on a regular basis to prevent illness because we don't get enough in our diets. I take upwards of 2 grams every day, which brings me into the next statement I'm about to make about body weight and your own personal system, going back to the creating your own stack. But I should be taking more, actually. I should probably be tripling that dose, but I take it regularly because I need to build it up in my system. It does not help you respond to colds. Zinc does a way better job there and elderberry. But when we talk about the RDVs, they're kind of nonsensical. Moving into what I just talked about, you have to keep your own system in mind before we get into some more of the questions like that I get asked a lot about and some of my recommendations. I'm 282 pounds today, 282.1 my way in this morning. So I'm sometimes twice the size of other people, sometimes 3 times the size of some people. I take a vastly different value every day. I take 40,000 IUs of vitamin D every day. I try to get out in the sun as much as I can. My job keeps me inside. I don't get out as much as I would like to. So I supplement vitamin D, D3, K2, because you got to take your K2 with your D3. But yeah, my 40,000 IUs is different than someone else's 5,000. So you have to be mindful of your weight. Again, blood panels really help, making sure you keep in mind that, you might have to check the research on here. I take that much because I'm shooting for over or up to 90 nanograms per milliliter of vitamin D in my system. My research shows that there is not a populous group in all of the world we've ever seen that had anything as far as mass, like really bad disease structures with vitamin D levels that high. We just don't see the same all-cause mortality rates with populaces that have high vitamin D concentration in their bloodstream. Vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin. Keep that in mind, but it takes a long time for your body to build up stores. That gives me another thing to talk about. There's so many things. So many things. When we talk about taking the vitamins, water soluble versus fat soluble, Octavia originally told you, water soluble, you kind of take them regularly, whereas fat soluble builds up in the system. Well, it takes a while. And so I would say, and Octavia, I'll get your opinion on this. I would say every 3 months to 6 months is a good, blood panel time frame. What do you think, Octavia?
I think that's a great time frame. Every 3 to 6 months for blood panels is a really good way to keep track of how your body is responding to the supplements you're taking and making sure your levels are where you want them to be. And of course, always working with your healthcare provider and making sure that you're adjusting based on your own needs and your own results.
All right, let's get into, now that we talked about some of the vocabulary pieces, I don't think I missed anything there. Actually, yeah. Octavia, do you have any other vocabulary things we should talk about before we get into like questions and specific recommendations?
I think we've covered the big ones. I mean, we talked about bioavailability, absorption, stacks, and all those important terms. So I think we're in a pretty good spot to dive into some of those questions and recommendations.
The first one I'm going to start with is from shout out Sammy Murfit on Instagram. She hit me up with a great question. Honestly, it's just 2 awesome questions. Number 1, overrated supplement, and also good supplements for anxiety and stress. My number 1 overrated supplement, I told her it was Garcinia cambogia. I would say it's pretty much anything that has to do with like getting quick results and anything that has a ton of marketing behind it. So supplement, like the blends and all that stuff. Like there's just so much nonsense out there. But Garcinia cambogia, that one's stuck around a while. We've gotten really good at kind of like kicking some of them out of the door of being like, no, that does nothing. That's nonsense. Don't take that. But really my biggest recommendation there is probiotics without prebiotics. Do not, I repeat, do not take your probiotics without prebiotics. Just don't do it. It doesn't work. If you put the probiotic in your system and you don't give it food to create the colony, which I've talked about before, the prebiotic, the fiber, it's pointless. Also, dosing. You got to take way more probiotic than you think you actually do. The gummies with like the 2 million, no, not enough. Probably not enough. This is where we get into the recommended values and stuff like that. Like, no, you just need more than that. And then as far as anxiety and stress goes, I have an interesting take on this. My first take is L-theanine. We know a ton about L-theanine. I'm going to have Octavia tell you about it in a second, but L-theanine, specifically if you're a caffeine user, can help with jitteriness. L-theanine is also just a great mood stabilizer. But, well, actually, before I go into my next one, Octavia, why don't you tell people about L-theanine? Because I actually think it's a great supplement.
Absolutely. L-theanine is a really cool supplement. It's actually an amino acid that's found naturally in tea leaves, especially green tea, and it's known for promoting relaxation without causing drowsiness. So it's really great for reducing stress and anxiety, and it can even help improve focus, especially when you pair it with caffeine. It kind of smooths out that jittery effect you might get from coffee or tea. And overall, it's just a really nice, gentle supplement to help with calming the mind.
And so then my next one I would add, which I don't think, I've ever heard anyone say it on this side, quercetin. And quercetin is often taken with bromelain. You will see those two things mixed together. But quercetin or NAC, N-acetyl-L-cysteine, because we don't take glutathione. Taking glutathione is almost pointless. Your body does not absorb glutathione well as far as supplementation goes. So you take the precursor of glutathione, which is NAC, but both glutathione, NAC, as the precursor, or quercetin are what control our immune responses. I prefer quercetin because even though we don't absorb it all that well, you can get some better absorption factors, but you might only get a 20 or 30% absorption out of it. Quercetin controls our histamine responses. And when your histamine response is controlled in your body, you generally feel better. You don't feel bloated. You feel like, your body's working well. You don't have the inflammation, and brain fog comes along with that, which then by a byproduct of that lowers your cortisol levels and makes you feel a little bit better. So I think controlling inflammation on that, I will say there's things going back to her original question saying, what is some overrated supplements people take? I probably am going to get in trouble for this, but turmeric, or people take it as curcumin. It's overrated. It's just kind of pointless because this is a little bit of a curveball on my side, but you have to take it together. You have to take turmeric and curcumin together. Never take just turmeric or just curcumin. Make sure it's both, because turmeric and curcumin. Octavia, actually, why don't you go to tell us the difference? One is the root extract and one is the byproduct. So what is the difference between turmeric and curcumin? They came from the same thing, though.
Sure. So turmeric is the whole root, and it's what you might find in your kitchen spice rack. Curcumin, on the other hand, is actually one of the active compounds found within turmeric that's responsible for a lot of its anti-inflammatory properties. But you're absolutely right that they work best when they're taken together, and often with something like black pepper extract, which can really enhance the absorption and make it more effective.
So this is where you get into learning, like, okay, how do these things actually work? Well, turmeric or curcumin separate. Nope, not great. Take them together. Oh, black powder extract. Oh, perfect. Like this is why it gets really complex. And this is why people don't want to involve themselves with supplementation, because you do have to do a ton of research and really look into these things. So that was a great question. Thank you, Sammy Murfitt. Let's go into, dosing and timing. I get this conversation all the time. Dosing, we kind of already talked about, making sure you're, monitoring your blood panels, as well as making sure you're looking at updated recommended value listings. Shout out to Pure Bulk here, because you can go on Pure Bulk's website and they just have a wealth. It's like Wikipedia for supplements. Any product you want to buy from Pure Bulk, you go, this is why I love them so much. Like, you go on and people are like, oh, should I be taking this? It has research, and it has it all there. It's laid out. It's got everything about the supplement, what the supplement does, what it's good for, what it's not good for. And then it's got all the research that it's referencing. It's just, I just love the way they do it. So dosing and timing. Timing, the other side of that is certain things interact with other things at different times and do different things for your bodies at different times of the day. Quercetin, I'll come back to that one because it's a good representation of this. Quercetin in the morning is different than quercetin at night. Octavia, would you like to tell us why?
Absolutely. So, quercetin in the morning can be really helpful because it supports your immune system and helps reduce inflammation throughout the day. But in the evening, quercetin can actually help lower cortisol levels, which is your stress hormone, and that can promote relaxation and help you wind down before bed. So, it really has a different effect depending on when you take it, and that can make a big difference in how you feel throughout the day and night.
And that also takes us into timing for other things. One of those is, people ask me about caffeine all the time. Caffeine is a supplement. Yeah, we get it from coffee, we get it from green tea, we get it from all these sources, but technically you are supplementing caffeine by taking those dosages. Caffeine is best taken, as far as my understanding goes, I'll say 8:30, but really 9 o'clock in the morning after, and then no later than 2 o'clock is kind of my window. But caffeine has a bunch of beneficial effects. What you should not be doing is using caffeine to wake up in the morning. Using caffeine to wake up in the morning gets rid of your normal process, which I talked about in, I think, the last episode when we talked about the endocrine system, or 2 episodes ago, maybe it was. Your body uses cortisol to wake up in the morning. It needs cortisol to do that. The cortisol cascade wakes you up and gets you ready for your day. If you're replacing that with caffeine, you're messing up the system. Octavia, can you double check me on that? I believe it's 8:30, 9 o'clock till about 2. Is that the right window?
Yes, that sounds about right. Generally, waiting about an hour and a half to 2 hours after waking up before you have caffeine is a good idea because it lets your natural cortisol levels do their job and help you wake up. And then having caffeine a little later can just boost that alertness without messing up your natural rhythm. And then, like you said, cutting it off early in the afternoon around 2 o'clock can help make sure it doesn't interfere with your sleep later on.
So this also has to do with, like, if you think about it, like coffee, you're supplementing caffeine when you're taking in coffee. Think about that with some of your other drinks, right? Um, I think sugars are poison. I try and just stick to honey for the most part. Honey is a supplement for me. Honey's got a bunch of awesome, amazing things in it. So I never heat my honey, or I shouldn't say never, but 99% of the time, I don't heat my honey because I don't want to kill off the great things that are in there or destroy the things that are in there. Um, and I'll use honey as a supplement because it's got these other beneficial processes. Some people put that on the diet side, but it kind of depends on the intention in which you're doing these things. If you're just drinking your cup of coffee to get caffeine, you're intentionally supplementing caffeine. That's what you're doing. So you kind of have to think through your daily processes like that. I do not recommend, just like I said, I don't recommend the blends of supplements. I don't recommend those drinks out there that have all sorts of weird stuff in them. Like, look, yeah, you do that at your own risk. But let's get into some other supplement specifics that I get asked about a lot, right? I talked about vitamin D already. I think everybody should be supplementing vitamin D. I don't think enough people get sunlight in their health. I'll call it their functional diet, which is like actually going out and getting sunlight as part of their day. So I like vitamin D supplementation. You should always be taking that with K2, so D3, K2. Vitamin C I talked about, again, I take 2 grams. I probably should be taking triple that, but taking vitamin C helps your cell walls. And so the thicker your cell walls are, it helps with skin health. It helps with fighting off foreign invaders. That's really when we're talking about immunity. Remember I talked vitamin C is the castle walls. Well, if the castle walls are already broken down, the invader gets in real easy, but it takes time to build those castle walls back up. That's why I regularly supplement vitamin C. Another reason I do that is because I try to limit the amount of fructose that I get in my diet, specifically from fruits, because look, that's a decent bit of sugar intake, and to get that much vitamin C, I got to eat a lot of fruits. So that's, again, talking about the nutrient density in our foods, going back to all that. That's why I covered all that ahead of time. What else? Vitamin D, vitamin C. Oh, magnesium types. I'll see. Let's check Octavia's knowledge. Octavia, can you tell us about all the different types of magnesium supplements?
Oh, there are definitely quite a few different types of magnesium out there, each with its own benefits. For example, magnesium glycinate is really well known for being gentle on the stomach and great for promoting relaxation and sleep. Magnesium citrate, on the other hand, is often used to help with digestion and can have a bit of a laxative effect. Magnesium threonate is known for its ability to cross the blood-brain barrier, so it's often used for cognitive health and brain function. And then there's magnesium oxide, which is a more common form, but not as well absorbed. So each type really has its own specific use, and it's always good to choose the one that fits your needs best.
Yeah, you'll also have magnesium calcinate in there where they mix some calcium in and there's a whole mess, which we'll also talk about. Certain things do certain things. Like it's designed that way. So like Octavia just said, magnesium glycinate, that's typically the one you take before bed, whereas magnesium citrate is the one that's going to help you with digestion. Comparatively to that, we have other products that are on the market that people tell other people to take that don't do anything. One of my, I won't even call it a pet peeve, but it's one of the ones I like to harp on the most is calcium supplementation. Calcium supplementation, as far as I understand it, and look, I'm wrong on some things, so check me on it if I am, but calcium supplementation for bone health and also for joint health, kind of pointless. You should be taking trace minerals. Your body's bones are made of minerals, not just calcium. Calcium is just one of the minerals that's in a bone. And it's actually typically the calcium is the substrate of the bone and has, as much to do with the health of the bone as like fluid flow in the body. Like, if you're not getting enough blood flow in the body, your bones are unhealthy as well. So I would say when you look at these things, look, you're hearing a lot of just general speak. Oh, calcium's great for bones because no, but look, trace minerals are good for bones. Same thing for joint support. People take all these like, oh, it's great for your joints, joint support blends. Oh, collagen peptides. Not great for your joints. They are good for your joints, but it's not like the best thing for your joints. Your joints run on synovial fluid for the most part, and synovial fluid has nothing to do with collagen peptides. So if you're taking collagen peptides for your joint health, not really doing much. It's probably giving you better, skin and skin, hair, and nails. But then you got what's the one I'm missing here? Octavia, help me out. What's the keratin? Is that what I'm missing?
Yes, exactly. Keratin is that protein that's really important for hair and nails, and it definitely plays a big role in how strong and healthy they are. So you're right. There's definitely a lot of nuance when it comes to supplements and what they actually do for your body. So it's always good to dig a little deeper and see what really works for the specific goals you have in mind.
As far as minerals go, Octavia, check me on this, but I prefer to take in minerals in what's known as ionized versions. Can you tell us the differentiation there or about the ionization process in the body, Octavia?
Absolutely. So, ionized minerals are basically minerals that have been broken down into their ionic form, which means they're more easily absorbed by the body because they don't need to go through as much digestion and processing. When you take minerals in an ionized form, your body can typically absorb them more efficiently, and it can help ensure that you're actually getting the benefit of those minerals. So, ionized versions can be a really great option for making sure that you're getting the most out of your supplements.
And just on a random tangent, because I just thought about it when she was talking about that, is when you hear the words about all these trace minerals and stuff like that, remember, I started this off with there's vitamins, there's essential minerals, and there's supplements. Well, you can supplement any one of those things, but there's also trace minerals, which don't get often talked about, just like something like methyl B12. So methylated cobalamin. What is cobalamin? It's cobalt. That's what cobalamin is. It's a version, it's a form of the mineral cobalt. You're eating cobalt. You're taking in cobalt. People will be like, oh, what cobalt? Hold on. Well, same thing for like your joint health. When I'm talking about joint health, I'm usually talking about borine for the most part. Borine is the trace mineral that really helps your joints. It helps produce synovial fluid. Ooh, wait a minute. I might have that completely wrong. Octavia, check me on the borine thing.
You're actually on the right track. Boron, which is the trace mineral, does play a role in supporting joint health, and it can help with the maintenance of healthy bones and joints, partly because it helps with the metabolism of minerals like calcium and magnesium. And it can also support the production of synovial fluid, which is that lubricating fluid in your joints. So, yes, boron can definitely be an important part of that joint health equation.
Is there one that's more important for the synovial fluid?
When it comes to synovial fluid and overall joint health, hyaluronic acid is actually another key component. It's something that our body naturally produces, and it's really important for keeping that synovial fluid nice and thick and lubricating your jaw. So, while boron is definitely important for bone health and joint health, hyaluronic acid is another big player when it comes to that synovial fluid.
There we go. See, this gets complicated. I get it. Like it's hard to figure all this stuff out. You just have to start small and kind of build your stack and, pick one health thing that you want to work on. It can get super crazy from there, but it doesn't have to. You might even just start with something similar like electrolytes. Pure Bulk just launched their new line of electrolytes. And so when we talk about hydration, hydration doesn't happen when you drink water. Water doesn't hydrate you. I'm sorry to tell you that, but maybe you didn't know. Water helps your body process things. And actually taking too much water dehydrates you or kind of dehydrates you because it flushes too much stuff out of your system. Electrolytes are what hydrate us. The reason for that is because no one ever taught you about these things called the nodes of Ranvier. I'm going to baseline this. The nodes of Ranvier are the fat deposits around the nerve tissue that allows for something called saltatory conduction. That's how your nerves send signals. So if we want to talk about nerve health, we're talking about salt in the system. Saltatory conduction, and nodes of Ranvier, the fat deposits or lipid, allows for proper nerve function. So you need salt. You don't need table salt. Table salt's crap. It's terrible for you. But a good mineral salt, like a Celtic salt or, a good sea salt. My favorite is Norwegian sea salts. They're awesome. You can get them smoked and they're delicious. But those are the things that can make better health outcomes occur. That's supplementation. I supplement in my food, in my own diet, by using a good mineral sea salt that provides those trace minerals and also a little bit of a better salt in the process to help with those functions. But electrolytes, that could be a super simple one for you to try out. Like, oh, hey, I just need a little boost throughout the day, or maybe I do a lot of heavy activity and drinking water doesn't seem to be helping as much as it should. Although, yes, water is important, but add some electrolytes as a supplement to see if that helps you throughout your day. Before I get into some of my most specific ones, Octavia, would you like to add any specific recommendations of maybe just some random ideas of where someone can start? Like, like I said, electrolytes, something like that?
Sure. I think starting simple is always the best way to go. For example, a good quality multivitamin can be a great place to begin just to fill in any nutritional gaps. Omega 3 supplements like fish oil are also fantastic for overall health, especially brain and heart health. And something like magnesium, which we talked about, can be a really great addition to help with relaxation and sleep. So starting with those basics and then building from there based on how you feel is always a great approach.
So starting from those basics, let's just use those as an example real quick. Let's talk about fish oil. Fish oil, I'm going to get the two things wrong, but it's DHEA and DH something, DPA. What are the two pieces, Octavia?
You're really close. The two main components in fish oil that we look at are EPA, which is eicosapentaenoic acid, and DHA, which is docosahexaenoic acid. And both of these omega 3 fatty acids are super important for brain health, heart health, and reducing inflammation. So, yeah, fish oil is definitely a great supplement to consider.
Pure Bulk has it listed on their website of the correct ratio, but what should the ratio of EPA be to the other one?
A common ratio that's often recommended is having a slightly higher amount of EPA compared to DHA, typically around a 3-to-2 ratio. But of course, the ideal ratio can depend on your specific health goals and needs. So it's always a good idea to check with a healthcare provider or look at the specific product information to see what's best for you.
And it should be listed on the label. If it's not, if those two things are not listed on the label and the percentage of each that make up the product, don't buy it. It's terrible. They don't know what they're talking about. What was the other one you put in there? Magnesium, the fish oil. What was the other one you suggested? Oh, multivitamin. I got it. Multivitamin. Multivitamins. Here's my thought process. Brand is the most important thing. Make sure it's not full of a bunch of filler. Don't just go to the vitamin shop and buy your multivitamin there because it was a cute little bottle. That's nonsense. And it's probably not doing anything for you anyway because it's just full of crap you don't actually need. And the values that are trying to combine into it are bad. Buy a good branded, high quality multivitamin and treat it like a bank account, and specifically a savings account. You take a multivitamin just to make sure that you covered all your bases. If you need it, great. If not, the body's probably going to get rid of it anyway. Don't worry about it. I've been taking a multivitamin for years. Just what I do. What else? Oh, my favorite thing, because it's actually in the sleep supplement that I've created, anthocyanins. Octavia, can you tell us about anthocyanins?
Absolutely. Anthocyanins are a type of antioxidant that I found in a lot of deeply colored fruits and vegetables, like berries, for example. And they have some amazing health benefits. They can help reduce inflammation, they support heart health, and they're also really great for brain health and even sleep. So they're definitely a wonderful addition to any supplement stack if you're looking to boost overall wellness.
My favorite's bilberry, but all right. So all of that being said, as a closure here, Octavia, is there anything you want to add into this conversation before we wrap it up?
I think we covered so much great ground. I would just say to anyone listening that it's always best to start slow, listen to your body, and always do your own research and consult a healthcare professional when you're making changes. But overall, just enjoy.
I knew we were going to lose her. I knew it. I tried to get her to talk before we lost her.
I'm
Yes,
sorry,
yep.
but you've hit the daily
We
limit
have,
for
we have.
advanced voice.
I know. Sorry. Well, thank you, Octavia. But yeah. So with my anthocyanins thing, and Octavia saying start small, it can get so advanced you're not even ready for it, and I get that. It's totally fine. I'm going to go out on a limb here and I'm going to make a statement that I've made in my own practice. And this is me making it more publicly because it's going to be on a podcast that people can listen to. And it'll be in perpetuity because I said it on the internet. I think in the modern society, with the lack of nutrient density in our foods, everyone must be supplementing. I'll say it again. I believe everyone should be supplementing in some way or another to fill the holes that are left behind in our actual diets. The diet structure, specifically in the United States of America, most foods are honestly poison at this point. And look, I'm making huge statements here, but like the center of the grocery store is just full of nonsense. When we talk about true nutrition in our diets, again, you need to be testing in some way or another, but the density is just not there. We even see it in protein values. When we talk about the recommended daily values, that was just baseline stuff to prevent illness, not make you healthy. I've never seen someone on the superhuman side of things that wasn't doing some specific like diet nutrition work or supplementation work. On the bodybuilder side of things, we talk about supplementation all the time. It's just part of the process. So I highly recommend you do some supplementation in your life. It doesn't have to be crazy. Start small, but it can make for a healthy, happier you. So check it out. And definitely, please check out purebulk.com. Use code Stoic Bodywork 15 for 15% off your first order, or Stoic Bodywork to get 10% off any order after that. They have been one of the most amazing companies to work for, or work with, I should say. Yeah, they're just amazing. I can't say anything more than I've already said in this podcast. They're awesome. Check them out. And pick something small to start with. Most of their stuff comes in bulk powder form, but you can get capsules. If you look at the website, it'll have like, is it powder form or is it capsule form? You might even start with something like creatine monohydrate. It's a big topic right now, this whole creatine thing. I kind of wish I still had Octavia with us right now to talk about it. But there's a lot of research coming out from like someone like Dr. Rhonda Patrick, who is showing that, the normal 5-gram dose might not be the most beneficial dose, a 10-gram dose, even up to 15-gram dose to catch up on sleep. There's a lot of new information coming out regularly. I'm not at the point that I've done enough research on it to make a recommendation. I only know what I've done anecdotally with myself as far as using high-level doses of creatine for brain and physical function. It does work. It's just part of the process. But, look, again, you're probably not getting this stuff in your diet as much as you think you are, specifically with absorption. So always start with your gut biome because that's where everything's going to start. After that, you can start to create your own stack. And now you have a bunch of vocabulary to work with to, make up that stack and to know you're doing the right things. That's all I got to say about that. Again, thank you to Pure Bulk and a huge shout out to Glenn and the team over there, and Tim, who I've never honestly gotten the chance to talk to, but I would love to. If you want to talk sometime, Tim, that'd be great. But yeah, purebulk.com, use code Stoic Bodywork 15 or Stoic Bodywork. I will catch you on the next one. I hope this one was helpful, but no outro interview music just yet. So I'm going to play the end of the intro music and we'll go with that.